So now I'm going to show you a dish using a piece of fillet steak, and we're going to do a side dish of roasted sweet potatoes with rosemary and vanilla as well. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is to peel the sweet potatoes, and once we have peeled those, we will chop them up into weird, wonderful and interesting shapes, and we will start roasting them in the frying pan, which we have some which we've started here, these ones. I'll not take the lid off because we're trying to steam them a little bit as well, but those ones will probably be about, once you put them in the pan, nice hot pan with some oil and a little bit of butter as well, salt and pepper, that'll probably take somewhere in the region of around about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how big you cut the potatoes and the shapes of them. So once we've done that, we need to prepare the fillet steak. So you can go to a really good butcher and ask them to prepare it for you, but around about a 6-7 ounce steak is an average sort of portion for somebody in this kind of setting. So the only things that we need to add now to our sweet potatoes are some rosemary, which we picked fresh from our own garden this morning here at Little Pod HQ. An absolute wonderful, wonderful flavour. So they can now go in there with the potatoes. And what we'll also do is we have a pod here, which we will split, and what we'll do is we'll take the seeds, we'll put the seeds into the pot, but once we split the pod, we'll also put the pod in there as well. So we want lots of fresh pepper on there, top and tail as we say. Next thing we can do is use some of the rosemary which has been left over. What we can do is nicely and very finely chop the rosemary up, and then what we can do is dip the steak in the rosemary, and all that really does is infuses the steak with the flavour of the rosemary really. So we can even roll it around the outside if you want to, so that you'll have a beautiful crust around the edge, and that is now ready to go into the pan. So now what we want to do is just to add a little bit more oil to the same pan that the sweet potatoes have come out of, which are just sitting resting in the bowl there just now. Move that round the pan. The next thing we need to do is to put our seasoned steak into the pan. And what we want to do is just to allow that to cook at a high heat for as short a time as we can. Now, depending on how you like to eat your meat, I would obviously suggest that you should eat it medium rare. But depending on how you actually like to eat your meat, this could take anything between 7 to 8 minutes if you want it medium rare, in which case sear it on one side for 4 minutes, turn over, give it the other 3 or 4 minutes. But regardless of how long you want to cook your steak for, it's really, really important that you take it out of the pan, away from its heat source, and allow it to rest. If you consider that the meat that you're actually eating is a muscle on the animal, what happens is when you cook it, it tenses up and it starts to shrivel up. What you want to do is just give it a little bit of what we call resting time at the end of it, just for it to relax a little bit, and it should be a bit more tender. But this dish will work with ribeye steak, with rump steak, it will work with almost anything, and it's also a really nice dish to do with some venison as well. So that's the steak ready now, so all we need to do is to take it out of the pan, we'll set it on this board, just give it a few moments to rest, and then it's ready to be plated up. Okay, so now to make the sauce for the steak, all we're going to do is use a little bit of red wine into the same pan that we've done the steak and the sweet potatoes in, and what we say, deglaze it. This can often be a very a treacherous job, but at this moment all you can smell are the beautiful aromas of the wine that you've used. Now use as good a wine as not as you want to, and all we need to do now to add to that, and we'll add a little bit of something sweet to it, so something like honey or red currant jelly is absolutely ideal. Just adjust the seasoning and a little touch more of pepper. I'm also going to add at this stage just a little teaspoon of balsamic vinegar as well, which will just lift it. The combination of the sugar or the sweetness from the honey and the vinegar from the balsamic just adds a really nice, almost sweet and sour aspect to the sauce. So now we're just going to carve the steak ready to plate up. As you look at the inside there, beautiful and medium rare in there. Absolutely perfect. Now don't forget, if you like your steak a little bit more cooked, all you need to do is leave it in the pan for an extra few minutes, and it won't really need as much resting time as this one will. Now we're going to plate up, so what we want to do is take some of our sweet potatoes out of the bowl, just sitting here. Now that it's had the time to rest there, as you can see all the juices come out of the steak there. We'll now put that onto the plate, like that. So now all we need is a little bit of the sauce onto the plate. And now that it's plated up, that's a quick 10-minute dinner, and these folks here are going to try it. Exactly, and a really, really strong sweet flavour, you know? It's just a very subtle addition to things, you know? Especially the sweet potatoes, because potatoes are quite sweet anyway, so you don't want to add, an awful lot of you know? Yeah.